Arthur's world was measured in square footage and the smell of industrial-grade lemon wax. For 10 years, he had been the invisible man at Sterling Heights Tech, a shadowy figure pushing a gray cart through the corridors after the sun went down. Being a single father to 8-year-old Leo meant Arthur didn't have the luxury of pride, he had the necessity of survival. Leo was a math prodigy who did his homework on the backs of discarded spreadsheets while Arthur buffed the marble floors of the executive wing. They were a team of two, living in a cramped apartment where the heating was temperamental, but the love was constant. Arthur's only dream was to save enough for Leo's tuition at a specialized academy that saw the boy as a future engineer rather than just a janitor's kid. One rainy Tuesday, the routine shattered. Arthur was dusting the mahogany desk in the office of Julian Vane, the firm's notoriously cold-blooded CEO. Vane was a man who looked through people, not at them. On his desk sat a sleek, silver prototype laptop, the Nexus, rumored to hold the company's entire future. As Arthur reached to wipe a smudge from the glass partition, a stray wire from his heavy vacuum cleaner caught the leg of the rolling desk chair. In a sickening sequence of slow-motion gravity, the chair bumped the desk, and the silver laptop slid off the edge, hitting the hard floor with a crack that sounded like a gunshot. The screen spiderwebbed into 1,000 shards of dead pixels. Arthur froze, his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. He knew the rules. This wasn't just a mistake, this was an unmitigated disaster. Before he could even pick it up, the door swung open. Julian Vane walked in, flanked by two board members, deep in a heated discussion about the company's declining stock. The silence that followed was heavy. Vane looked at the shattered remains of his empire's crown jewel, then at Arthur's trembling hands. He didn't scream. He simply pointed to the door. "You're done," Vane whispered with a coldness that hurt worse than shouting. "My legal team will be in touch for the damages. Get out." Arthur didn't go home. He couldn't face Leo. He sat on a park bench in the rain, realizing that the damages for a prototype like that would cost more than he'd earn in 3 lifetimes. But as he sat there, he remembered something. When the laptop had hit the floor, a small, encrypted USB drive had popped out of a hidden side port, one he hadn't noticed before. In his panic, he had pocketed it, thinking it was a piece of the casing. Now, holding it in the dim light of a street lamp, he saw a small engraving on the metal, "For the one who listens." Driven by a mix of desperation and a strange gut feeling, Arthur went to a public library the next morning. He plugged the drive into a terminal. He expected corporate secrets or Swiss bank accounts. Instead, he found a series of video logs. The first one opened to a younger, exhausted Julian Vane, sitting in a garage 10 years ago. "If you're reading this," the video Vane said, "it means the Nexus has failed, or I have. This isn't a computer. It's a confession." Arthur watched, transfixed, as the videos detailed how the company's success was built on a stolen patent, a patent belonging to a man who had died in poverty, a man named Elias Thorne. Arthur's breath hitched. Elias Thorne was his own father. The board meeting to finalize Arthur's termination and the lawsuit was scheduled for that afternoon. Arthur arrived at the headquarters not in his uniform, but in his only suit, the one he wore to Leo's school plays. He burst into the boardroom just as Vane was explaining the accidental loss of the prototype to the investors. The security guards moved to grab him, but Arthur held the USB drive high. "I didn't just break a laptop, Mr. Vane," Arthur said, his voice ringing with a newfound authority. "I broke the silence." He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for his job back. He simply demanded they play the last video on the drive. As the board watched, they saw Vane admit that the soul of the company was a lie, and that the true heir to the technology was the family of the man who had been cleaning their toilets for a decade. The room was deathly quiet. Vane put his head in his hands. He wasn't a monster, he was a man who had been crushed by the weight of his own secrets. The board, terrified of a public scandal and moved by the undeniable proof, offered Arthur a settlement that would change Leo's life forever. Arthur walked out of that building for the last time, not as a janitor and not as a victim, but as a father who had finally cleared his family's name. He went straight to Leo's school and sat on the grass, watching his son solve equations in the dirt with a stick. He realized then that the most expensive thing in that boardroom wasn't the laptop, it was the truth. He leaned down and hugged Leo, whispering that they were going to be okay. The lesson was simple but echoed through the halls of Sterling Heights for years. Dignity isn't found in the title you hold, but in the integrity you keep when everything else breaks.